Hello from Dr. Kate. It's now time to get moving on your projects, both group and individual. But first, an exciting accomplishment that I got from ResearchGate, and I've mentioned that is sort of a warehouse for researchers to put their articles for easy access to other researchers. So they keep sending the same kind of badge or medal as you can see here. This time I had 3,500 reads. Now that's probably inaccurate. That really just means 3,500 times individuals, and I'm sure that there are some individuals looking for multiple articles are hitting on my articles. I don't think that really means they've read them, but for what it's worth, I guess that's supposed to make me feel joyous and happy. Not so much. So, what happened on spring break with me? Well, first of all, on that Friday leading into spring break, a couple students and I did some conference work, which was for a civic engagement conference at Alverno. And we were talking about a class project in corporate and health communication, the advocacy course. And I was excited that they got the opportunity to speak before a group about things that we are trying to accomplish there. And I went to something called the Hunger Summit in the Wisconsin Dells area, which was sponsored by Feeding America and United Healthcare, which was quite inspiring as well. And then what else? Let's see. Well, I pulled out my back and assorted other things and am ready to get back to work. I hope you are as well. An announcement I want to make, I know this is an online class, but if you are on campus at any point, the Warhog Pantry is opening at a new location, which is Drumlin, and I think the official opening will be Tuesday at 2 p.m. So please stop by if you want to take a look at the new digs and also if you have any need. Oh, while I was at that conference at the Hunger Summit, this is just another example of, on the left-hand side in particular, how conversion of data to percentages can make things pretty overinflated appearing. So you have to take note that they are only talking about 40 people to begin with. Therefore, you got to keep that in perspective. So when they say 30% were food insecure, well, that equals, if you do quick math, 12 people. I'm not saying that's unimportant, but again, 30% sounds much more dire than 12 individuals. And just keep looking at the data. So as you go down where it says 17.5% indicated they did not eat for a full day. And again, so how many people is that? Well, 20% would be 8 people. So I think 17.5% would be something like 16 people, not a huge amount. And the 10% calculation below, again, that's 4 people, and so on. So that's why I call it lies, damn lies, and statistics. You can make things sound different than what they are by the type of data that you present. On the plus side, they were working on a program here where when people were admitted and then discharged, they were a group of them that had things like congestive heart failure and other specific diseases, were provided with food through a service for, I believe it was 2 weeks after discharge. And then they wanted to measure how many of them actually were readmitted within 30 days for the same reason. And they had tested this out in 2018, and you can see here that only 4 of the 70 were readmitted. Again, 30 days is kind of their magic number. Now is it possible some were readmitted 31 days, 32 days, 33 days? Yes. That's not the issue or that the metric that they're using here. And they look at the data gathered so far in 2019 and see that there is no one being readmitted. So the people speaking said, well, clearly we're onto something, and providing meals to people is kind of the link to a change in admission rate. And that's totally overstating it also, because it also involved they would have a nurse do a home visit, and as opposed to just doing a phone follow-up, which is the typical protocol. So it's not in and of itself the meals, though that certainly would be one variable, I think, that might lead to fewer admissions. Now, why would United Healthcare want to do this kind of thing? To save money. They were talking about how rewarding this is, and how people are so important. And of course, I'm not saying that isn't true, but honestly, it's the bottom line. The average stay for someone hospitalized was something like $9,600 a day, as opposed to they gave a figure of for providing 2 weeks of meals is something like $10 a day. So, I mean, look at the cost difference. If you can save thousands of dollars, I think it's certainly well worth a try. And this is just baseline data they're gathering so far that shows promise. So let's first talk about your group project and how things are going to be graded out. This is available to you online as well. We've worked on the questionnaires, so you should be able to receive all the points for that. How you analyze the data and interpret it is another 10 points, and I'm going to be assisting you with that, and we'll talk more about that later. Equally important is, how does this matter to professional situations? Just like in the abstract assignments, where you're supposed to tie your articles that you abstracted to how do they apply to a profession or multiple professions. You get 5 points for how well your paper, the group paper, is written, and just my overall impression of your written report. And then there is 10 points for your presentation. Now you are going to be doing a narrated PowerPoint style of presentation for this. So it's going to be not only the quality of the PowerPoint, but how well you orally present the findings and discuss the overall professional application and your, as a group's, general level of professionalism. If you haven't, you have to get these surveys launched. There's really, we're out of time because you've got work to do, and I have work to do with you in the next week once you get enough surveys gathered. Therefore, what you need to do is, in class, meaning, and I know we're in an online environment, you need to send your survey link to each other. And it's not the survey like you're editing it, not that link, but you need to, in Qualtrics, go to the area where it's going to show you that you are going to now distribute it. And it will say, do you want a single hyperlink that you can send around? And that's what you're looking for. I would say while you're waiting for the number of surveys you need to roll on in, that you are figuring out who's going to do what for this project, who's going to do a literature review, for example. Look at the directions for the group process and paper, that document that included the rubric, and divvy up who is going to do what, because you can certainly write up what was the methodology used, where did you get the valid and reliable survey instruments from, how was it developed, meaning in Qualtrics, how was it distributed, and so on. Even if you don't know the exact numbers of how many people took it, etc., you can leave that part blank and fill in the blanks later to figure out your return rate, for example. I'd like you to come up with at least 100 surveys, or at least that it appears in Qualtrics that 100 people took your survey. Why I'm saying it appears is because every time someone clicks on it, including all the times you have while you're building the survey, it's going to look to you like someone has taken the survey, and that's not the case. So when we get what I hope will be at least 50 usable surveys, the more the merrier. I have to discard, eliminate all of those that are just people clicking on it and or people who start it and then don't finish it. So I have to get rid of that kind of information to get down to how many good surveys do we actually have. I want to give you the possibility to meet with me virtually online if you so desire. I'm actually going to be out of town at a conference in Omaha, a place I really have no desire to visit, but that's the way it goes. This is for a communication regional conference. We can definitely set up a time that will work for a phone call. It can be with one or more of you. So please reach out to me via email and we can set something up. If Thursday doesn't work, I can also do that on Friday at some points in time. Now I'll work this in and around presentations that I have to make, so please throw out to me via email when you might like a phone call, and I'll do my best to accommodate you. You don't have to worry about sending me a picture because obviously we're online. I'm going to talk about this in my face-to-face class too. But long story short, I would be more than happy to touch base with you personally just to see how we're doing with your projects. So your group goal is to create a narrated, audio narrated, that is PowerPoint. That would be approximately 15 minutes in length. You will need to have that uploaded into Canvas no later than midnight on April 25th. Your group paper is also due in Canvas no later than midnight on April 25th, so I can review all of your work and provide you with feedback as quickly as possible. It's quite easy to create a narrated PowerPoint. I'm going to show you in a link next and also just give you some pictures of it. It's a very simple process. All you need to do is have your speaker volume on for your laptop and then do a very easy step. So that's what's coming next. Creating a narrated PowerPoint is quite simple. The video link here is one that's about 4 minutes long if you'd like to see it as a step-by-step process. So to get to this, you'll have to kind of escape out of my presentation and click on this hyperlink, or just really do a how to create a narrated PowerPoint, put that into Google and something like this will pop up. I also found some step-by-step processes that you might find helpful. Again, if this isn't, if you have questions, asking Mr. Google will definitely pop up different people giving you instructions. Now, it probably matters what version of PowerPoint you're using. So if for some reason the instructions here don't seem to fit what you're looking at, you would probably have to search for additional instructions by saying, your version, let's say you're using a 2000 version of PowerPoint, so that you would get the right places to click on, if you know what I'm saying. But the nuts and bolts of it is, assuming you have your speakers on, meaning you've got the volume turned up and all that good stuff, how you would know that is, by clicking around, first of all, and or let's say you have your email open and every time you get a new email, you can hear a noise, a bell, or whatever the noise is from your computer. That means your speakers are on. So that's the first step. So you've created the PowerPoint as far as, what all you want in it. Then simply what you do is open up the PowerPoint. You can see here where it's got circled slideshow. That is one of those tabs right at the top of the screen. When you click on that, you will see this option of record slideshow. You can start recording from the beginning. Select that, meaning slide 1. You're going to just start recording. Let's say you're the first person in the group to start recording the show. So you can do that. Or let's say somebody in your group, they're going to do like the professional applications part. And in that case, you would go to, forward through, click through your slides to the part where you want to start recording your portion. Let's say that's the 12th slide. So you're on that 12th slide, you click slideshow and say start recording from current slide. And once you click either one of those things, it's going to ask you, are you sure that you want to do that? Start from the beginning or start from a current slide, and then you're going to click OK on that. And you just start talking. And if you have different things, images or points coming in one at a time, as you click the Enter button, it's going to move your slide just like you're doing a live performance. And it's going to save it with your voice. So it's kind of slick actually. And so as I mentioned, when you say you want to record from the beginning or record from a particular slide, it's going to ask you that little pop-up, that record slideshow option, and that when you're sure this is all fine, then you say start recording. And actually in the upper left, you're going to see how long you are talking. That counter is going to be saying per slide how much time you're spending on it. And then the right hand is going to show you the total amount of time your show is taking. Again, I'm not too concerned if it goes over time, so don't worry about that. Oh, I have to edit it down. Don't. That's fine. Let's say you make a mistake, like I do all the time. What I do when I know I've screwed up is I'll just hit the escape button, which then I'll see the slideshow like you would any other way, where it's going to show on that left-hand side the small of individual slides. And I want to go to where I goofed up. I'm going to click on that one, and then I'm just going to say, again, hitting slideshow tab, that I want to record from the current slide. So it's just going to re-record over whatever blunders that I made. Again, I do that all the time. Very simple way to edit. I also would like you to save as. I want you to create a video rather than a PowerPoint. So do two things. First, save it as your audio narrated. So you've got that, so you don't lose it somehow. Then I want you to save as and create a video. Now I know there's different ways to do this depending on what version of PowerPoint you have, but as it works for me, when you hit save, and as you can see here, you get this option of file types, and it'll say create a video. Now this will take some time for it to actually work. You're going to see on your screen that and the bottom of it, that little bar where it's going, like when you try to save things, and it usually doesn't take too long, but if it's a larger file, you'll see this bar kind of fill in. That, it could take, several minutes or a half hour. I don't know. It kind of depends on your computer for it to save, and it's going to save as either a WMV. It could get the option if you go save as, it might just come up as MP4 as the option. Again, you're gonna have to play around with that. But by all means, first save the show as a PowerPoint with all the audio on it before you start monkeying around with trying to create the video version. Because what I'd like you to do is upload the version. If you have any questions on that, feel free to contact me. And the next thing we need to talk about, because this is coming up in just a few weeks, and that's your individual paper. This is totally separate from the group project. What I want to do now is talk to you about creating this paper and how you might go about finding articles in a simpler way. What I don't want you to do is go into Google and just put in some words of something you're interested in, like media violence in children, and then think, oh, well, whatever the first, 5, 10 things that pop up, that's my research. That's not going to cut it for this paper. What we need, as I list here, are first of all, a narrow specific topic related somehow to communication, and we are a very broad eclectic field, so what I don't want, however, is hard science. So this might be something you want to run past me. In fact, a couple of you have already, and we've started to try to get some ideas going. And any questions, feel free to contact me. But what we have to do is, this is the trick of this paper. You find 2 research articles that are in a narrow specific topic area that have similar findings when they're measuring the same or as close as possible variables. And 1 article that does not find the same results. It doesn't mean that 2 find a positive result and another one finds a negative. It doesn't have to be opposites, but 2 find support for something and 1 does not. That it's no significant difference is probably the most likely. And and that 1 contrasts to the 2 that did find some similar significant result. So I want to go quickly through here on how you search smarter, not harder, with this kind of a project. So we need to go into Google Scholar because to me, this is your best bet to most quickly find what you're looking for. First, you need something, and it doesn't have to have anything to do with the research questions that you've created in the past. That was just a way to get you thinking about variables in the communication field surrounding a given topic area. You can use, or at least start with those if you so desire, or just start with something brand new. You need to put in as specific of research terms as possible that relate to a given communication area. Now, if you have no idea to start with, Here's what I do. Before you go to my step 2, I would just go and put in some words that you think, terms, phrases that relate to a given area of interest for you. So for example, I'm trained in risk reduction interventions, and also they're kind of related to sexual risk. So I might put sexual risk reduction intervention. Put that string in to Google Scholar and see what articles pop up, because I want journal articles only, not just, you know, news reports or whatever, or just small write-ups. I want the original journal articles, because what I want to do then is look at the keywords in the articles. Let's say you should get the option for a PDF file for some of them. Just to get you started, I'd click on some of those PDFs and see, it's usually on the first page somewhere, maybe as part of the abstract, maybe at the bottom of the page. Often they'll have keywords, and look at how, or subject headings, something like that it might be called, and see what they're calling it, because researchers are sorting, they're telling, the system, I want this, when people search for these terms, that my article is going to pop up, and that just might help you if you're stuck right from the start. So let's say you've done that and you know what you want as far as a topic area. Now, again, remember this needs to be narrow and specific. So I can't just, say I'm interested in interventions, health interventions, much too broad. So I want sexual risk reduction interventions, and I might even say I want with a particular demographic population, like adolescents. And I might put that in, and adolescence, or some other kind of characteristic. And I'd also want to put in the phrase meta-analysis. I'm going to talk about this in a few weeks, what this all is, but for our purposes right now, trust me that this will make your life simpler if you put that in and then see what pops up. You're going to find articles that are doing a meta analysis. And what that means is they're putting the articles already for you. So here was one that I just did as an example. So I was looking for bystander intervention. That has to do with people who are witnessing something. This term is used campuses often, and high schools. Say you see something that causes you concern. Maybe someone drinking, maybe you see some kind of an interpersonal violence. Again, that's what a meta-analysis is about, is putting together research. And I was interested in peer education, which is meaning that students training students on what to do. And then I come up with, when I put meta-analysis also in the search, articles that are using the technique of putting together research. And then I kind of scanned here. I think they are relatively recent, 2012, 2013. I'd probably hope to get more recent than that, just because the year of the article of the meta-analysis means all the articles that are part of it are going to be older, because now you as the researcher are putting together older research. So the more recent. So I had asked it, you can see on the right hand side, to show me, it's highlighted in red, articles since 2015, just to give me a little more recent look at things. And lo and behold, things pop up. So I am scanning these to see, okay, which seems to be of greatest interest to me. And one that I was interested in wasn't available. In fact, what you do next when you find the article through Google Scholar oftentimes you can't just click on and get the article right then and there. So then I switch over to the library system through UWW and I put in the name of the article. I'm saying, okay, search it. It said I have to do an ILL, which is an interlibrary loan request. So as I go through those steps, this is much simpler than when I did this back in the day, I can tell you that, because when I said request it, it filled in the whole form for me, which was pretty sweet. And then you can see here when I clicked on yes, please request it, that bottom right hand is saying here's your request, and it has a transaction number. Why I'm saying you should not put this off is, again, I don't know how long that's going to take to get that article sent to me. Back in the day, these would have been sent as photocopies. Sometimes even if it was a dissertation, they would send the actual dissertation through the library system, and that could take weeks even to get. But luckily, we're a lot speedier these days, but I still don't know when. And actually, I did get it relatively fast, but I didn't know. So here you can see where I was looking at, trying to get the article, and it's saying it's available through this hyperlink here, Sage Journals, and how to go about. So for this one, I just simply clicked a download of the PDF, so you definitely want to save it. You can see here, again, I want to point out to you, this is more of a narrow specific topic area, a meta-analysis of school-based interventions aimed to prevent or reduce violence in teen dating relationships. This isn't just, dating violence. No, it's interventions done in a school, and it's for particular age group demographic. So I click on it, and here we go. So all those steps got to this. A review of educational research is a journal, and now I got to figure out what articles are in this, because a meta-analysis is just putting together other people's work. So one thing that is often done in these articles is that they're going to put together all the articles in some kind of a table, descriptive kind of data information for you. It's telling you who in that left-hand side, so that's the reference. You can see here that different researchers used different kinds of programs. Now you can also see, and you got to be careful with this, that the same researchers publish multiple articles. So it's really not okay in all likelihood to just choose, oh, I want Jones and Levy. First of all, they're from 1991, which is kind of old, but secondly, they are probably using the same data and publishing multiple articles. So this table goes on and on. It's just one piece of information. Another was, I thought, a useful table, table 4 in this particular article. It says they're comparing those who use intervention and no intervention. So these were articles that did, I guess you could call it a quasi-experiment, as we mentioned, those quasi-experimental design. And you can see some found of, let's say, see where it says studies, that means 13 studies they determined had this characteristic of using an intervention versus no intervention, and that there was a positive effect. We'll talk more about that later. But overall, the articles were positive association. And you can see even some about rape myth acceptance that has a negative association. So what that really means is that those that were exposed to the intervention were significantly less likely to accept rape myths. And that's things like, how you dress, you're kind of asking for it, and that type of myth phenomenon. So to me, that would be interesting. Maybe I could figure out which articles found one thing versus another. Also, what I do, and this is why I'm kind of calling this part read smarter, not harder. You want to find articles measuring the same thing. The meta-analysis is going to go through, here are different variables that different researchers studied. So this is a subheading, Teen Dating Violence Knowledge. And it tells you right there in black and white, there were 13 studies that measured this. When it says a total of 15 effect sizes, that just means probably each article at least measured violence once, and maybe a couple of the articles did a pre and a post test, so they got 2 measures, and that's all that means. But here's what's good. You have the effect sizes range from a high of 1.23, and they give you the citation, so that's some kind of a positive effect, to a low of, and which is almost 0, there's negative 0.04, which is Sanchez-Cesaro. Those are 2 of your articles right there. Weiss and Black apparently had some kind of a positive result. Sanchez-Cesaro did not. So we want to find another article from your list of references that also measured teen dating violence knowledge and was positive. They gave you Weiss and Black. Now you find the other. How do you in the list of references? Try to figure it out by title and or doing more Google searching, at least by taking the most likely suspects. This is just another area where they're doing a subsection of teen dating violence attitudes. This is a different variable from knowledge. And they say here there were 10 studies. They again cite this Weiss and Black. And then we've got Taylor et al. That is in finding, in a sense, the opposite. So there's 2 articles right there. Again, Weiss and Black, and then we look for Taylor et al. You find the third. And you should be able to find the third by looking at the list. Some, but not all, of these kinds of articles use this style that you put an asterisk for the articles that are in the meta-analysis. Because when you write research articles, you're also going to give background information, and that isn't included in a meta-analysis. So you first of all only want to look for the starred ones, especially because you've got to find that third article. Don't forget, and you should be able to find it based upon the information this article presented to you. So that, as you can see, ends up taking some time. Don't wait to start on this. Go get the articles, because maybe these articles are not able to be, I guess, corralled into your saved files, maybe you have to do an interlibrary loan for it. That's why I say don't wait, search. So you need to go through that reference list. This was a clue I saw in the article. It says that in the online version of the journal, there's some supplementary tables for additional details. Well, how do I get those? Maybe that's what I need in order to find another. So my friendly warnings to you are this. If you wait to begin to search, you're in trouble. If you wait to read, you are in trouble for this paper. And especially if you wait until the end of April to start doing any of this, much less beginning to abstract, you will be in trouble. There aren't ways to get around this. This is something I can immediately tell, and if the articles really don't fit together as they're supposed to, this does not fulfill this assignment. So please start as soon as possible with this. And just as a side note, when I did put in that interlibrary loan request, it magically appeared pretty fast in my inbox. And I just had to log back into the library and found it. So what is something like this about? Effect sizes means that there were studies that focused on just behaviors, and some studies focused on attitudes and beliefs. This is just, again, when you look at these meta-analyses, it kind of gives you clues about what kinds of articles were used and how they kind of sort them out by different types of variables. It's not enough information, but it does give me some for my hunt. But the best thing is that descriptive table, which is ideally in the meta-analysis, not always, but it go through article by article. Here's what they measured, what variables, and that might be enough. It might tell you if it had positive or negative results in that kind of a table. And you can just say, okay, I want Smith, Jones, and Brown articles. I can tell by reading that table. Most of the time, we're not so lucky. Here, I pasted, and I'm not saying, oh, this is really great, you should read, this is so simple to read. But I thought, and this is kind of playing off of what the other table I just showed you is, that they looked at interventions that used a facilitator and those that didn't use a facilitator. And also, you can see here, what does that mean? Did they use a video or a poster? And then one was an online. So do we want to take a look at researchers that did something called bringing in the bystander? You can see that as a type of a program that multiple people have used and use facilitators with as well. But again, be careful with this Moynihan et al. That's probably, at least for a couple of them, using the same data multiple times. So just be aware of that. So you can see it might be something you want to do is just say, hey, I want to look at different researchers that used that same program. That's one possibility. You can see some people use the MENS program, which you just don't want to repeat researchers, but it looks like 3 different ones. Now again, you want two who found a similar result from another. So it's a little bit like being a detective. Now, this meta-analysis I'm talking about here doesn't do that nice job of just highlighting which ones were meta-analyses and which were not. So you got to do a little bit more of a reading by looking at that table I just showed you and then taking a look at the reference list. This is not an APA style. This is a numerated style of references. So as they come up in the article, then they put the number 1, 2, 3 in the reference list. And those hyperlinks actually don't work. It just takes you back to the beginning of the article. Sometimes online articles, they'll actually hyperlink out to the article that they reference. But regardless, you are get at least in a topic area that is relatively narrow, and that's important. So what isn't useful here? Well, the first article, Campus Sexual Assault, a systematic review. Whenever it says systematic review, that means it's a meta-analysis. You are only using a meta-analysis to get started, not to do the job. You got to use the meta-analysis to find your articles. So again, this is just an example of a reference list, but this takes you time, so don't delay. That's my best advice for you. This is due May 1st. There isn't an extension on this deadline. You have until 11:59 on Thursday, May 1st. I have to have time to grade these. And also, if you want this to be part of your writing requirement for me to consider you for that, you're going to need to contact me for that purpose because I will have to consider all your written materials to see if you are able to get the writing requirement through this course. This paper, as well as your portion of the group project, and I will consider those together. So if you want more information on that, please contact me. And that definitely seems like enough for now. And I look forward to hearing from your groups and also you individually for any help that I can give you.